All right, graphing. Actual graphing. Not just points, but we're going to graph lines. Okay? In order to graph a line, you need to understand and know one very important equation. Okay? I call this my goddess equation. You can call it whatever you want. But this equation is the root to linear algebra. Y equals mx plus b. Whereas m implies the slope, which is equal to rise over run, and b implies the y-intercept. Okay? Now that's the book way of it. Okay? So that's the, you know, the book's definition of y equals mx plus b. Okay? It's a linear equation that incorporates the slope and the y-intercept with the coordinates x and y. Okay? So, this equation will graph any possible line. Every single possible line you can graph, this equation will graph it. Okay? So, let me talk about slopes really quick. Okay? I created this great face. This is my face. I call it the face. Okay? It's a little angry because I used to coach wrestling and I was really passionate. And some people take passion as anger, but I was just, you know. So, the angry face seemed a lot better than the sad face to me. You know, you could have the sad face, but that just, yeah, that just didn't fit me. Angry face fits me. I yelled a lot at students. So, I want to know what kind of slope this is. Well, if it goes down from left to right, we're going downhill. Down should tell you negative. Okay? If we're going up, because we read from left to right, right? We're reading these lines the same way. We read it from left to right, it's going down. We read it from left to right, it's going up. Up is what? Positive. Just makes sense, right? When I'm going up, I'm going positive. When I'm going down, I'm going negative. Right? Okay? Here's the funky things. That's why I had to create the face. Because that was easy. Positive, negatives, people get all the time. What they don't understand is when it's straight up and down or it's horizontal. So it's either vertical or horizontal. What happens then? Okay? And so what I would say is, you know, when you smart off to me in class, you know, when we would be on a second story classroom building, I'd say, I want to take you and I want to physically throw you through that window. And what kind of solution would that be for me? That would be no solution, right? Because I'd go to jail and you die and just all bad things happen, right? So don't make me throw you out the window. No, that wasn't what I was trying to learn from that. Don't, what I was trying to teach them is it was no solution, or a nose solution. Okay? So, a nose solution. Okay? No solution. So anytime you want to jump off a cliff, it's no solution. Unless, you know, you're doing it for fun and jumping into water that's plenty deep enough. Blah, blah, blah. Okay? Now, what about the mouth? And so I would say, okay, what kind of slope is the mouth? Well, the mouth is a lot like the floor. And if I put a marble on the floor and it was perfectly level, is it going to move? No. So there's no slope. But wait, there has to be a slope. So how fast does it go? Well, there's no speed. Oh, okay. So it's not going with any kind of speed. If I put it on a slope like this, it's going to go with some kind of velocity, right? Now, if it's coming back at me, it's negative velocity. If it's going away from me, it's positive velocity, right? So that's the difference between negative and positive slope, right? So positive slope, negative slope, okay? So this is a negative velocity, positive, negative velocity, right? Positive velocity. So the way I want to look at it is, okay, so if it's going downhill, negative, uphill, positive, okay? Straight up and down, it just falls. Free fall, no solution, okay? When it's sitting there, it has a 0 speed, so its slope is 0. There is a slope, in other words, but it's 0. Okay? So then I did some little funky things to it. I was like, okay, cool, this is my face. Yeah. And then I'm like, well, it's not funky enough. Because, you know, when I first started teaching, I had hair down to my butt, and I had a tongue ring, and I had a lot of things going on, you know. I was a little kind of freak. So, a lot of my students were freaks too. So, I was starting to go, okay, well, what can I do to change this? And so, I looked at it, and I said, okay, what if we put a nose ring in? Okay? And a dimple. Because I'm cute, I have a nice little dimple when I smile. So I said, okay, we'll start with the dimple. Okay? So the dimple was the y equals. If y equals anything, then it's going to look like the line. Like this. If x equals anything, then it's going to look like that. And what that meant was, if I have x equals 5, okay, on this coordinate plane, where we have y on top, x on the side, if x equals 5, it's going to look like the nose. So it's going to be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's going to be straight up and down at x equals 5, because x equals 5. When y is 1, x equals 5. When y is 10, x equals 5. When y is negative 3, x equals 5. X equals 5. It's always 5, so that's why I made that line. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 for infinity, plus or minus. When y equals a number, say 3, then y is always equal to 1, 2, 3, right? But it's always 3. No matter where it's at. So, therefore, it looks like the mouth. So when you have y equals a number, it's going to look like the mouth. When you have x equals a number, it's going to look like the nose. Okay? And that was really important because it's those are the hardest ones to get on the test. Okay? It kind of makes sense. Some of it makes sense, right? Because here's the thing. Y equals mx plus b, right? So, if m is 0, right, then there's no x. It would be y equals 0 times x plus b, so y equals b. And that's where this whole y equals 3 is it's the y-intercept. Oh, the y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, so that makes sense. It's always going to be 3. Where it doesn't make sense is x. This one always confuses people. Oh, how do I write that? Well, it's hard to write it with this realm. Because what happens is you get a slope that's non-existent. There's no solution to the slope. The reason is because the slope gets a 0 in the bottom, and you can't have a 0 in the bottom. Okay? Can't have a 0. We learned that before, right? Can't have 0 in the bottom of the equation. We learned that in chapter 6, and that's why we said, oh, then we have to solve for what x cannot be in chapter 6, right? So here the 0 is in the top, so it's like 0 over some kind of number, which is just 0, right? So that's no big deal. This blows up. And when it blows up, everything goes away except for the x Okay? There is no y-intercept. And then there's just the number here. But it's not has anything to do with y. That's why what this is it's a non-function. Remember when we learned what a function was? And we did what kind of test to it? The vertical line test. Right? And no two x's can be the same if we're going to call it a function. So that's the only problem with any of these lines. Lines that go up, lines that go down, lines that go sideways. No problem. Vertical line test, only once, only once, only once. But what happens when it goes straight down? It goes through infinite times. It's not a function. This is a function. Therefore, you can't express x equals 5 as a function of y equals mx plus b because it's not a function. So you just have to know that that is where the problem occurs. And the problem occurred because 0 developed in the bottom. Okay?
So all of those, the face thing, all of those are called slopes except for the middle nose.
The nose is a no solution slope. Yeah. So there's, in other words, no, it's actually called no slope. There's no slope. There's no slope to the nose at all. That's the only point where there's no slope. This is a 0 slope, right? This is a, to you guys, what is this? Is this negative?
I say it's positive.
Positive? Negative? Is this positive?
Yeah, that's positive.
Okay, positive. Sorry, I'm looking at it backwards. Positive, negative, 0, nothing. No slope at all. So
0 and nothing is totally different.
0 and nothing is totally different. Yes, welcome to the Babylonians. Okay? It's a little confusing. But 0 and nothing are totally different. Yep. Yes. Good questions. Okay? Just remember, a 0 slope is a slope. But a no slope is no slope. I didn't even think of it like that. That's pretty confusing. But that's the way it is. Okay? Good?